Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, titled Do's and Don'ts of High Impact Ad Creative. My name is Terry Mock. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at CYBA. I'll be your host for today's session. Now, let me start with a quote. Creative without strategy is called art. Creative with strategy is called advertising. So what do you think of the quote? It's from Jeff Richards, Chair of the Advertising and Public Relations Department at Michigan State. He explored the role and value of creativity in advertising. We know that creativity is essential for advertising that works. The design of ad creatives is key to appealing to intended audiences, especially as we live in an age of overloaded media. But it's important to draw the line between art and advertising, and that comes from injecting meaningful strategy that connects the brand to the audience. Today, we're going to cover the latest strategies and trends in ad creatives. Now, before we get started, let me cover a few housekeeping items. If you're tweeting with us, tweet using the handle @CyberInc and the hashtag HighImpactCreative. We will have time for questions at the end of the session, so please submit your questions in the chat box available on your screen. And finally, we're recording this webinar and we make it available to you for later playback and sharing. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers today. Welcome, Nicolette.
Hi.
Nicolette Deneen is Director of Media Strategy here at CYBA. She's an industry expert leveraging the power of digital advertising and social media to increase brand awareness and ROI. She works to strategize, implement, and analyze digital media campaigns across verticals, including CPG, higher ed, and e-commerce. She's worked in the media industry for over 5 years. Nicolette is active on the IABC Phoenix Board of Directors. We also have with us Chelsea.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Chelsea. Chelsea Clement is Senior Account Manager. She services all our clients and manages a portfolio of top-tier enterprise accounts. With over 7 years of digital experience, she ranges across the retail, education, and e-commerce sectors. Her team runs a wide array of strategic campaigns that execute on brand strategy and deliver performance results. Chelsea is every client's best friend and always brings deep insights into optimizing media campaigns across digital channels. Nicolette and Chelsea, thanks for coming to share your expertise with us today.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now let's take a look at our agenda for this session. We're going to start with the state of design in ad creatives, and then we're going to take some time to look at how we can create compelling ad creatives, looking at the 4 trends in creative design: brand versus product focused ads, design principles, ad formats, and dynamic ads. We'll wrap up with key takeaways and take some questions at the end. As we get started, we're going to get our audience involved with our first poll. You see here on your screen the question: where are your creatives produced? Internal design team, creative agency, or a cry for help? So please put in your answers and check all that apply. Okay, well, we could see that many of you have are doing the creative design work internally with your own teams, and so that's great. Maybe you could take some of the tips from today and work with your teams to implement some of these best practices. We're going to start with a look at the state of design. The first strategy that we're noticing today is putting humanity into our advertising. If you take a look at this ad, which I'm going to show you momentarily, can you tell me who is the advertiser and what this brand is trying to do? Whatever it's doing, it seems to be working. There are over 6,700,000 views on YouTube for this ad. So we're going to play it. What's happening here is Adam Driver is delivering some good news to a fellow service veteran and his family. It's a college scholarship for the daughter of an injured veteran. As you could see, everyone's quite emotional about it, and it's making a connection to us. Certainly, it's quite memorable, and it's an effective advertisement. So, can you recall who was the advertiser? Honestly, Budweiser is the advertiser and the brand, but the ad has nothing to do with beer. In fact, at the end, they just give a big hug, and we want to do a group hug with them. The creative advertising idea here is about the moment of connection. What Budweiser did here is take an initiative to support fallen and injured veterans and put its brand on the event. Putting humanity into the ad is an emerging creative trend in digital advertising. And as you can see from the quote, a good ad should be like a good sermon. It must not only comfort the afflicted, it also must afflict the comfortable, spurring them on to action. Well, in terms of the next strategy that we're seeing prevalent today is that user experience is king. We all know that we're using mobile phones everywhere, so with the rise of mobile and new technologies, a new level of creativity is coming to mobile advertising as interactive ads. These immersive ads are highly engaging and give a boost to the user experience. Now, if you look at the creative on the left, it's a next-gen display ad using rich interactive media. This is the one from Timberland's Nas launch. It's an interactive ad that features a cartoon which users can color and a video featuring Nas. Clearly, you expect more engagement and a higher percentage of video complete as users are enthralled by the interactive experience itself. On the right, we have an interactive ad from Porsche. Wouldn't you want to click on the ad, build your own custom Porsche, and indulge in the thought of buying it? I know, I would. And we have other examples that are 360-degree video implemented into the ads, augmented reality and virtual reality, all giving users a better experience. Now, the last strategy we're seeing coming into more and more prevalence is one that's fairly basic, but still quite impactful. Less is more. There's a growing demand to reach audiences across all screens. We all have multiple devices with us. How can brands design ads for maximum conversion across ad units? So great ads start with meaningful and strategic content. Given the different sizes of online ad units, brands have just enough room to display a brief message with streamlined creative to capture a user's attention. Many times, ads have too much copy or too many frames in the animation, and less is more. Now take a look at these two ads here. Which one appeals to you? The one on the left or the one on the right? Obviously, it's the one on the right, and I could see, nods in this room here. According to Marketing Magazine, posts with 80 characters or less receive 66% more engagement. The ad should be designed to pique customer interest in a clear, unobtrusive manner and lead the user to convert. So using dynamic, responsive design, so different size ad units make the best of the space available, that's what works. So make it simple, make it memorable, make it inviting to look at. So to summarize, the state of design emphasizes an emotional humanity, interactivity, and the basics of less is more. Now, before we move on, let's do another poll. The question that we'd like to ask our audience is, are your ads more brand or product focused? Interested to see what your answers may be. All right. Okay. So we see that amongst the votes in that more than half are more product focused in terms of their current approach. Well, if we look at the 4 key trends in creative design today, one of the top trends is brand over product. And you might ask why? Well, there's been a movement away from big product pitches. Consumers are much more savvy these days. They can do a lot of searching on their own. They are not necessarily going for the stuff that used to work anymore. So More and more, brands are weaving their product into something bigger, a bigger story, something we actually care about. Now, this Star Wars ad, it's a video ad, we feel this sense of adventure calling. Clearly, she's having fun. It's not a hard sell promoting Star Wars toys, rather it's asking us a question. Don't you want to be a kid again and play make-believe? The ad connects to us as people, and that's been something that we've seen happening more and more. Now, as we go through and look at some design principles, I want to ask our next poll. Oh no, we're going to hand it over to Chelsea, and she could walk us through some design principles.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So I want to cover a few other trends that we see on a day-to-day. But first, let's start with this quote down on the bottom. Design is the silent ambassador of your brand. This quote is from Paul Rand. He's an American graphic designer that's known for his corporate logo designs, such as IBM, UPS, Enron, Morningstar. So I think this really does speak wonders to what we're seeing on a day-to-day for trends. But first, bold font and colors. You definitely want your ads to pop. I think it speaks, high volume when you are on a website and you're competing against some of your other brands. You definitely want those ads to stand out. Simple, clean design. Like Terry mentioned, less is more. So you definitely want to have, that more simple aspect. But it's important to also pick very genuine images that are true to your brand and that reflect the messaging you're trying to get across. We highly recommend a lot of times when you are building creative out that you test these creative in the beginning to find out whether a lifestyle image might work better than a product image. That authenticity and genuinity of the photos can be well represented across these ads. And then very common, I'm sure, you hear this a lot, but a strong call to action is so important to drive more urgency to your ads and get the best engagement. We are seeing a trend and more commonly used is video formats. So a video ad is definitely where we want to place across multiple ad channels. They do have high quality and really good engagement across the board. So if you have the assets, definitely use them. And then lastly, I think it's important to note that all creative should be optimized mobile at this day and age. 57% of traffic is served on mobile devices, which continues to grow year over year compared to desktop. So next, very important, is to cover the visual hierarchy. So you'll notice here the very first step is the F pattern. A lot of times this applies to a very text-heavy page. It might be an article or a blog, and what happens is a reader will scan down the left side of the page and look for the most interesting keywords or content, really to align and find what they're most interested in. So this is a good pattern to use when building out your creative. Z pattern actually is a little bit more commonly used for building out ad sets or even a website. So with the Z pattern, this is where a reader's eye will first scan across the top of the page. This is where most of the important information lives. It might be a call to action or hyperlinks. So definitely, you want to use these different patterns when building out the creative. Size and scale, very important. People do like to see bigger things first. They might read a text or they might see an image, but it's definitely important to have that text versus image ratio. And that also brings me to, you want to make sure that the content you're using draws attention, but it also has room to breathe when you're placing it next to an image. Bright colors, that's also, color and contrast is huge. We find that a lot of times that muted color or grayscale doesn't do as well as something a lot more brighter and colorful. So definitely use those richer colors if you can. And then proximity and white space. I think, we touched on this, but image placement is huge. That clean element is going to really work well, especially if you have text in a larger call to action. So I actually wanted to dive a little deeper and take a look at some examples. So here are static ad examples of utilizing these design principles. Here on the left, I think it's super important that, you know, this specific ad, the Fry ad, the text here, 60% off, that bold font really stands out to me. I know I'm getting a sale if I click shop now and continue down that customer journey. Here on the iRobot photo in the middle and the one, I think these two examples really show a mixture of brand and product. You know, if you have a great product and some great imagery, I think you definitely want to use it, but it's also important to apply some really good content or a sense of urgency, whether it is that free shipping or % off. And then on the bottom there, the Vita example and the tap into Market Smith, both of these really show a bright colored button to make that CTA stand out, really enticing that user to click through, check out, or continue that journey of shopping. So that's kind of a deep dive into some of our creative.
Thanks, Chelsea. Well, as we move along in terms of different ad formats, we'd like to ask our audience our next poll, which is, what programmatic ad format do you use the most? Banner, video, native, or not yet using programmatic display? Keep those answers coming in. Okay, well, what we're seeing is that most people are using banner ads, some are exploring video. So I'm going to ask Nicolette to talk us through the ad formats.
Yeah, definitely. So let's take a look at some examples so that we're all on the same page. So the most common is the banner, as we just pulled on. So what we're looking at the top is a static banner ad. And we actually mostly use static, but we can implement HTML to get some animated banners running as well. And these are in various sizes. So right now what we're looking at is a 728 by 90, but our 4 key sizes are 728 by 90, 300 by 250, a 320 by 50, and a 300 by 600. So we really can utilize those placements to really drive that call to action, create brand awareness. But another placement for creating that brand awareness is video. So Chelsea touched on video in the previous slide, and I think this is going to be the most important placement moving forward. You want to make sure that you're serving programmatically in pre-roll, in stream, running in banner, which is something that we easily implement for our clients who are currently running static banners or any type of banner ads. And then I think there's a little confusion around native. So native placement is something that should definitely be leveraged as an extra inventory source when you're doing your buy. What it is really is when you're looking at publishers, you'll see articles. So say you're on CNN, NBC, or Fox News, and you're scrolling through all of the articles. There's a special subsection called paid content, and that's where you'll find your native advertisements, and they look like an article. You can see here that most of these images don't have any text over them. You can use some of the stock imagery that you would on your banner ads, and then the text really is below it. Usually we suggest this being part of either your retargeting strategy or your prospecting strategy to drive more users to maybe some info on your site or a blog page.
Great. Well, we're going to move on to paid social ad format. So we're going to ask our audience, what paid social ad format do you use the most? Stories, newsfeed, right-hand rail, not doing it yet, and these relate to Facebook. Okay, definitely seeing some newsfeed. Wow, okay.
Ooh, lots of stories too coming in.
Stories is coming in.
Awesome. So it looks like newsfeed is the leader, which is what we expected to see. We do suggest optimizing across all of these placements, but let's take a look at some examples. So here is an example of how we're utilizing video in newsfeed for Steve's Paleo Goods. The video tends to serve higher on the algorithm, not the case for every client, but it does peak performance for Steve's Paleo Goods. And then in the middle here, we have right hand rail. And this is great. It's similar to a banner ad, like a 300 by 250. So you can see these on desktop only, which is really important. So right hand rail only runs on desktop. It's a great placement for if you're trying to boost conversions or really capture that retargeting audience. And then stories. These are our new favorites. So stories are something that we like to implement along with newsfeed. So say you're running automatic placements, you can still customize your story creative so that it fits into that ratio, so that it looks very native for the user as they're scrolling through their stories. And one of the best features of it is it has that super awesome swipe up to get you to the landing page seamlessly. But all are important when trying to drive those KPIs on paid social. Perfect. So another thing that we love here at Cyba is really optimizing based on data. So why wouldn't you tailor your creative to data as well? And so here we like to utilize dynamic ads for both prospecting and retargeting. Dynamic for retargeting is definitely more common, and we'll get into that in a second, but we also love to use dynamic to prospect. So here's an example of a prospecting dynamic ad that's pulling in data sources from the Weather Channel. So what it's saying is, hey, user who is in Houston, Texas, we know that it's humid there. The weather is like 96 degrees with 80% humidity. Here is a product that would work to tame your frizz in your hair. It's a super great way to really personalize that message for those users and drive them down that customer journey. You can utilize weather, location, or even demographics. So if you're serving to women, males, different age groups, it's a great way to really personalize that message. And then the more common form of dynamic is retargeting users. So you might want to serve them product recommendations, the last viewed products, or most importantly, the products that they abandoned in their cart, which is something we implement on our campaigns here at Cyba. And then another part of retargeting is the sequential storytelling. So you really want to take that unique approach of segmenting out your site and making sure that the message is tailored to wherever that user is in the sales funnel on your site. So you might serve a different message for someone who's higher on the homepage than you would someone who's reading your blog. And all of this can be done through data-driven dynamic ads.
Great. Well, those were great tips and best practices on design. Here are the key takeaways from this session. More and more we see brands appealing to consumers' emotions in terms of promoting brand over product and making that connection. We also advise using best design principles as you generate your ad creatives. Those were discussed by Chelsea. And then as you choose your ad formats, choose ones that will inspire action from your target audience. So pick the formats that work best. Nicola spoke to this. And along with that, serve custom and interactive and dynamic ads based on the consumer preferences and behaviors that you see. So with that, we want to move along to questions. So I'm going to see what questions came in from the audience. Okay, the first one that came in is, how do you decide between using a graphic design or a photograph for your ads?
I'll take that one. I think what's really important is understanding what that original KPI or goal is. So for instance, if a product goal, if your goal is to get a higher return on ad spend, it might make sense to maybe A/B test the product versus more of a lifestyle image to see which one has higher click-through rates and which one has a higher conversion rate. Again, it's very crucial to do a testing period within the first 30 to 60 days, understanding which ad sets, which ad sizes are converting at a higher rate.
Okay, well, let me do the next one. Do these design rules vary across countries and cultures? Actually, I think I'll take that one myself. I have seen differences in ad creatives based on tastes and preferences, according to regions and geos. For example, in Asia, I have seen ads that, you know, just bolder in colors and more contrasting colors. So they are different in style, and then because of the language being read from right to left for Chinese, for Hebrew, for other languages, you do need to change up you know, how you set up your creatives and your copy. Okay, we have our next one. What do you recommend for promoting a resort offer?
Perfect. Yeah, so travel clients are some of our favorites to build the assets for, because you guys usually have the best imagery promoting your resort. So definitely using images of your scenery. And then I would also, depending on where you're buying media, I would tailor your messaging a little bit. So say you're trying to get people to your resort in the winter, maybe serve to places where it's snowing and say, hey, get out of that cold and come to our resort, depending on where your resort is. But that's just some ways that you could tailor that message.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this question, maybe Chelsea, you could answer. How do you know it's time for new creatives and creative refreshes?
Yeah, so I would say on a client perspective, a lot of times it's that true testing period. So within about 90 days, if your creative is very stale, or, you know, your conversion rate or click-through rates are very low and, you know, not at benchmark, I definitely recommend either adding in more creative in the mix or looking at pausing and changing up the creative. So about that 90-day mark is when it's very crucial to understand what's working and what's not.
Cool. We have more questions coming in from the audience. How do you suggest using native if your website doesn't have a lot of content or blog outside of e-commerce?
So that's a great question, and we get this a lot, but it's more and more prevalent to actually use that native space for retargeting as well. So we see this work really well with dynamic retargeting, so putting your products in those native inventory placements, but also if you have like a standardized like product that you're trying to focus, we can run it that way as well. But that's definitely something that we utilize to expand our inventory and make sure we're reaching every one of your users in whatever placement they might be.
Okay, next we have, what are the best places to find high quality images if you don't have actual product photographs?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a ton of places to find content for your ads. And one of my favorites, if you're on, you know, if you're a bargain hunter, I like to use Unsplash, so unsplash.com. They have a lot of great free stock images. And then some of our other options are Shutterstock and freepik.com as well. And those ones you do have to pay for.
Okay, well, I know there are more questions. What we will do is get back to you and respond to them after the session. But thank you so much for Nicolette and Chelsea for coming today and your great insights. Thanks also to our audience for joining us. Please continue the conversation with us on Twitter or email us at marketing@cyber.com to get more information or to see a live demo of our solutions. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.